The Vikings beat the Green Bay Packers week 1, 23-7. And my gosh, man, it was such a big win for Minnesota. I was so happy for them because the game's in Minnesota. They got a new coach. They're playing the dominating team in their division. And the question going into the year for me with Minnesota was, are things actually going to be different this year? Every year, Minnesota's like, this is our year. Things are changing. We got Kirk Cousins. We got this. We got that. And every year it's been, okay, but your older brother, Aaron Rodgers, and the Green Bay Packers they're still there. They're still dominating, and it's not going to change. I thought things were different in this game in Minnesota between the Packers and the Vikings. First of all, the Vikings offense was awesome. Kirk Cousins was 23 for 32 passing, 277 yards, 2 touchdowns. Justin Jefferson, their star receiver, had 9 catches for 184 yards, 2 touchdowns. Kirk, by the way, 0 turnovers. And when you have Kirk Cousins with 0 turnovers, meanwhile, Aaron Rodgers, the opposing quarterback, has 2 himself, a fumble and an interception. That's different right there. The Vikings led 17-0 at halftime. And like I said, things were vastly different for Green Bay. Both of their starting tackles, David Bakhtiari and Elgton Jenkins, were out with injuries. Aaron, again, 2 turnovers, had a pick. The pick was before halftime. It's like almost a Hail Mary situation. I'm not too worried about that. But the fumble was bad. He got rocked. And there were a lot of growing pains for Aaron Rodgers with his young receiving core. I mean, he was literally he had a completion to a practice squad guy, literally. Alan Lazard was out, so they had none of the top 3 receivers they had from last year even playing in the game. Rookie receivers Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson had a couple moments where they were learning and showed their youth. In fact, the first play of the game, Christian Watson was wide open for a touchdown, and he dropped it. Should have been a 75-yard touchdown. Instead, it was no bueno. And, Green Bay got stopped on the goal line at one point. It was not great. And Green Bay looks vulnerable this year, especially right now, early in the year. I think by week 15, 16, the end of the year, Green Bay is going to be a different team. It's made progress, and the receivers will be better on the same page with Aaron and stuff like that. But Minnesota, I mean, in my opinion, this division is up for grabs. And Minnesota has a chance to capitalize on Green Bay being down and win this division. And it's really exciting for me because, their defense played great. Kirk Cousins finally has a coach who I think wants him and is willing to work with him and willing to build an offense that fits his needs. And it looked like that on Sunday. And I'm fired up, man. For Kevin O'Connell, the new head coach in Minnesota, it was a perfect start. So watching him, they had there was 1 second left on the clock when Jordan Love spiked the ball at the end of the game to kind of keep the game going. And he was telling guys, hey, get back. We got 1 more second left in the game. But you saw Kevin O'Connell realizing, hey, we got 1 second left on the clock. I'm up 23-7. I'm winning my first game in the NFL. And I was happy for the guy. I'm like, man, this is awesome. And I walked away from Sunday feeling really, really hopeful for Minnesota. I think this is the year, finally, where things could actually be different. They could win their division. The Packers are vulnerable. They got a good coach. They got a lot of weapons on offense. I'm sitting at home going, oh boy, maybe this is the year. I'm not foolish and stupid for finally thinking things are going to be different in Minnesota, and they certainly appear that way today. I want to say, this is an interesting thing. I looked it up because I was curious, and I might as well share it. There were 6 receivers drafted in the first round of the 2022 NFL Draft. I did the research. I might as well share. I wanted to figure out how each of them did week 1. So the first receiver drafted in 2022 was Drake London out of USC. He got drafted number 8 overall by Atlanta. Week 1 against New Orleans, he had 5 catches for 74 yards. It was a loss, but he was solid. Had a solid day. The number 10 overall pick, Garrett Wilson, went to the Jets against the Ravens week 1, 4 catches, 52 yards. Not awful. So far, I mean, basically every rookie receiver was very fine. 4 or 5 catches, 50 yards roughly receiving. Chris Olave, for example, the number 11 overall pick, 3 catches, 41 yards on 3 targets for New Orleans. That's great. Jarvis Landry was a dominating receiver in New Orleans on Sunday, or at least for New Orleans on Sunday. Treylon Burks, the guy who went to Tennessee hoping to replace A.J. Brown, the number 18 overall pick, had 3 catches for 55 yards on 5 targets like that. Again, fine, solid. Even Jahan Dodson, who was the number 16 overall pick by Washington, I would categorize him as having a big day. He still only had 3 catches for 40 yards, but 2 of his catches went for touchdowns. So that's awesome and good for him. Now, because the number 12 overall pick, Jamison Williams, did not play. Jamison Williams is a guy drafted 12 overall by Detroit out of Alabama. He tore his ACL in the national title game last year. So he's still recovering and will not play for a couple more weeks into the year. And because of that, I added a couple bonus guys because A.J. Brown and Hollywood Brown, while they were not drafted during the 2022 NFL draft, they were traded during the draft. So, for example, Hollywood Brown, you could argue, basically was the 23rd overall pick for Arizona because they traded their 23rd pick to get him. Marquise Brown, 4 catches for 43 yards and a touchdown. Fine, solid. Now, the real winner here, the team who I think got the best value in the first round, was Philadelphia. They traded their first-round pick to go get A.J. Brown. And week 1 with his new team, he had 10 catches for 155 yards, 13 targets. His longest catch was 54 yards. That's awesome. And I think of all the guys that were added to their teams, the 2 most impactful are going to be Jahan Dodson in Washington and A.J. Brown. I've said that before, and so far, 1 week in, that's actually appearing to be true, which I think is kind of fun and interesting. Now, one other guy worth noting is that the 34th overall pick, who was drafted in the second round technically, but it's the second pick of the second round, so it's almost a first-round pick. The Packers drafted Christian Watson out of North Dakota State. He had 2 catches for 34 yards. One of those catches, by the way, was on the final play of the game, kind of in garbage time, just a throwaway. Might as well get a completion here. But what's notable about Christian Watson, unfortunately, is that on the first play of the game, he dropped what would have been a 75-yard bomb for a touchdown. And it was painful. I was like, oh, man. If you're Aaron Rodgers, the look on his face was like, really, dude? I cannot handle this right now. I'm walking away. Aaron Rodgers was not happy.